This is All India Radio. Welcome to Science Serial, Life Must Go On. All India Radio, in collaboration with Vigyan-Prasar, presents Science Serial, Life Must Go On, based on understanding and managing sustainable development. Episode number 16th, titled Interactive Program based on Listeners' Letters.
It's a pleasure and a privilege to welcome Dr. Pradipta Ghosh, Distinguished Fellow and Director, TERI, the Energy and Resources Institute. He's also the former Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change. And for this special interactive program, we of course have Dr. Birendra Tyagi, Senior Scientist and Coordinator of this Science Serial. And to my right is, as usual, Dr. R. Gopichandran, Director, Vigyan-Prasar. We are well into, if I may say so, the second quarter of Science Serial Life Must Go On. I was wondering if it would be appropriate to just, Mr. Tyagi, just to do a recap on the journey of the serial right since its inception. We are now into almost the 16th episode.
Yes. When we started, I think the first, the curtain raiser, we discussed about like what is the intention of coming up with this serial, because of the sustainable development is become a mool mantra of all the developmental planning, and it is not the same development model. We are looking it into on three basic parameters, that it should qualify, that it should have that the environmental aspect, the social aspect, beside the economic. So development is not only in terms of economics only, it has two other dimensions also. And the sustainable development goal has been now part and parcel of all our developmental planning. I think Niti Aayog has already issued the direction, and those has been implemented in by all the ministries. And if we have to be part and parcel, every citizen of India has to be contribute in some way or the other. So for that, it is necessary that we all should be at the same mental platform to understand what it is and what are the issues we are taking up, and in what way I can contribute, or in what way I could be a part of this developmental process. For achieving this, objective, to make the entire process as a participatory, to create awareness before that. People should know. So in this serial has a 5 segments. In first part, we try to give understanding like what we mean by when we say sustainable development, and what are the issues which we are talking about. Like one aspect is energy, because energy, the whole economy revolves around energy, and now we are thinking about the clean energy options. So what are the possibilities and how we can achieve that? Because till now we are more on the conventional energy or fossil fuel. And second is, because of this our energy consumption pattern, we have already spoiled our environment. So there is the condition of natural resources is not very good. So what we should do now to coming back to the original situation and improving our environment and the natural resources. So in that, what the best conservation practices we can adopt. And third aspect was, now we are talking about large cities and all that. So how we can make those big cities sustainable? Because if we see the recent incident of the garbage which happened in Delhi, till now we don't have a foolproof mechanism to dispose of that the garbage which is created in the urban scenario. So if we don't have a proper plan, do we call the development is complete, or it's a holistic? So these are the issues which we have taken up in this serial. And just now we have finished the energy segment, and next will be on natural resources.
Dr. Pradipta Ghosh, let us take advantage of your esteemed presence here. Life Must Go On has been the essence of various protocols and agreements on climate change. One gets to hear a lot about, what happened in Montreal or Kyoto. Or
finally the
Paris.
one. Yes.
A common listener, has a lot of questions in his or her mind. What are these? And whatever they do, the entire world comes together. Is it really effective? I mean, just discussing it and then inking a few pages here and there. On the ground level, does it actually cause change?
See what the effects on the ground may be. I think if you look in the studio, you will find that all these lights are LED. And LED bulbs, they consume very little electricity, generate very little CO2 as compared to the incandescent bulbs. Now similarly, if we look at the fact that there is a wholesale movement of transport, public transport, away from diesel to natural gas. if you look at the very large amount of deployment that we already see in terms of clean technology, wind farms, solar panels and so on, and they are set to explode manifold. If we look at the levels of energy efficiency of our appliances before all these climate change agreements, there was nothing like a starred appliance. So they were all energy guzzlers. So these are all the technological development and the deployment can all be traced to the various steps that the different governments have taken in response to the climate change agreements. And so I think that although the climate change problem is a very difficult problem to solve in its entirety, but I think that the world has taken more than baby steps in addressing this problem.
Dr. Gopichandran, you're known for your crystal clear approaches on a variety of subjects. In the backdrop of the Swachh Bharat campaign, which is on, and would this be a timely question if I ask you the equation between development on the one hand and societal challenges and pressures on the other? How does one look at that?
Let us be very clear, and I'll mention 3 points. One is called a personal agenda of growth, another is a collective agenda for common good. I cannot as an individual isolate myself from common good, which therefore means my production and consumption preferences will certainly have an impact on the larger good. If collectively therefore we think of our responsibilities and our rights driven by a scientific understanding of something very simple, and that is at the core of all protocols and conventions. And what is it? The relationship between cause and the effect. I throw some waste, it certainly has an effect. I clean up the waste, it has a certain effect. This understanding of the cause-effect relationship is central to good behavior, which is what all science communication aims at.
Yeah.
Point number 2. Please understand, and I was following your lovely question to Dr. Ghosh, and I imagine he will agree with what I said because I'm also going to build on what he said. We have gone beyond baby steps is what he said. Now, what is a clear takeaway? Please understand, there is something called a policy. The policy is supported by plans. Plans embed many programs, and in each of the programs there are a large number of projects. So we are looking at a continuum of policies, plans, programs and projects. Large volume of activity happens in the hands of some people who specialize in policies, and that is translated with a very good seamless connectivity between plans, programs and projects. My colleague Dr. Tyagi, whose recent work on science clubs has demonstrated the relevance of this kind of a continuum. To be very precise on this energy aspect, energy is to be seen as a unifying principle. Energy for purposes of survival, for purposes of growth and for purposes of prosperity. Now, what is the final twist to this? In the process of extracting, using energy, do I generate what are called externalities? Externalities are impacts which people suffer without having generated them themselves. I grow a rose garden, my neighbor enjoys the fragrance of the rose garden. This is a positive externality. Somebody drives a polluted vehicle and my child and me inhale the exhausts. That is a negative externality, which therefore means everything we do is to converge on the principle of responsible behavior in the garb of looking at energy as a unifying principle. And therefore, I conclude by saying every individual has a certain definite role in having to clean up our environment. And if the individual accepts this with a sense of responsibility, equity and justice, there is no debate on the pathway we'll have to adopt.
It's so strange. The more you think about and talk about systematic science, so to say, more than rocket science, it comes across as common sense.
True.
And possibly that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Dr. Ghosh, let us now talk about enhancing energy efficiency. I'd like you to guide us on how India's energy basket looks like right now.
You see, there are two issues that you talked about. One is energy efficiency, one is energy basket. Now, as far as energy efficiency is concerned, under for example, the National Action Plan on Climate Change, which was adopted by the government in 2008 and which has been under implementation all these years, India put in place several programs to enhance energy efficiency. So one was the appliances labeling program. So in the initial years, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, they notified energy efficiency standards for different star categorization of appliances, that is, for example, refrigerators, air conditioners, and so on. And then they waited for the consumer response. And what they found is that the starred appliances, even though they were a little more expensive than the unstarred appliances, that the consumers were very conscious of the need to conserve energy, and so on a very large scale preferred the starred appliances. At the next stage, the government has made them mandatory that now, in fact, you cannot go to an appliance store and buy an unstarred appliance. And for example, like the minimum star rating is 3 stars. And of course, many people, they opt for 4 stars and some opt for also 5 stars. So this shows that the fact that we have moved in a few years from completely unstarred to fully starred appliances, this is one measure. Then the second most important measure has been the Perform, Achieve, Trade program of the government. In the first year instance, almost 500 large-scale industries, which together accounted for more than 50% of the total commercial energy consumption in the country, they were identified and given individual targets for realizing energy efficiency in a space of 3 years. Some of those who could exceed their energy efficiency targets, they would get certificates for the excess. Those companies which chose or could not accomplish their targets and they faced a deficit, they would either face a financial penalty or they could buy the excess certificates from the other companies which had overachieved and then meet their own targets. So in the first 3 years, this was also resounding success, and now it is being extended to a number of different industries. So these were the 2 major programs as far as energy efficiency is concerned. Now, as far as the energy basket of India is concerned, now India even now is reliant on coal for a major share of our power generation, some 65 to 70%. But in order that we provide for enough peaking capacity, we also have a certain amount of hydropower capacity and also a certain amount of natural gas capacity. These are the 2 technologies, 2 power sources which can actually provide the peaking loads. Now these are being supplemented. Even hydropower has adverse environmental impacts, mainly through impacts on biodiversity and through displacement of local people. So now these are being displaced quite rapidly, I would say, by clean energy technologies, which include solar, wind, to some extent biomass, and to some extent nuclear. And India has adopted target that by 2030, 40% of our total power installed capacity will be from clean energy or non-fossil fuels. This is a huge target because it involves some almost 350 gigawatts of capacity by 2030, which is increased by an order of magnitude of the amount of clean energy technologies that we have. So we expect that in the course of the next 20 years, we will see a very rapid shift away from fossil fuels to clean energy technologies. But even by 2050, we still see that there will be a certain role for conventional technologies like coal and natural gas, because to provide the base load, and also because we do possess these resources. At least for coal, we have possessed substantial resources, and we do not want that our natural resources become valueless, and that they also are actually the best guarantee of energy security. Also, the fossil fuels, they have this huge advantage that they are reliable, whereas renewable energy technologies, they depend on the natural energy flows, the flows of the wind or when the sun shines, so they have to be balanced by conventional energy systems.
Mr. Tyagi, that brings me to a very important point. As I was told, you are busy with a mega school project these days. You know, what we as adults discuss here, how difficult do you think it is to, convey to young minds? You interact, I'm sure, with a lot of younger minds who, a few years later maybe, will of course be in our position in discussing things and deciding things. How do you...
I think so far as the environment is concerned, or the awareness about environment is concerned, I think the youngsters are quite aware of it, especially the issues of polythene, the air pollution, water pollution, and the kind of natural disaster which are occurring. They are quite aware of these, and they are also aware of this fact that these are majority of them are man-made. And they are trying to adopt the good practices also as a part of their environment education, or no doubt like many of these things are not in their regular syllabus, but as a initiative through the media and the program like this, there is definitely an awareness about the environment, and they are willing to participate in all those initiatives where we are trying to improve the situation. So in that way, I think this serial itself was a part of that initiative, and we kept the whole thing was conceived in the way each episode is written and dramatized. We have taken the benchmark, like if anybody who is 10th class, who has studied up to 10th class, that much science, the vocabulary or the thing we have used, only up to that level. Beyond that, we have not gone. So you can see from the letters also.
I was about to say
them,
that.
yeah, letters are
There are a
from
lot
those
of letters,
youngsters
yeah.
only. And the very interesting part is, if you see, these are not those students which are pursuing, the science academically. They are they are very aware of these issues. So this is, you can say, India is shining. So I can tell you, like, because we are also receiving a lot of letters through emails. And by this distribution, I can tell you, like, the mails which I have received from Himachal Pradesh, then Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Rajasthan, Telangana, and West Bengal. So these are the serial which they are listening either Hindi or English. So you can see the distribution, and majority of them are still pursuing their study.
Letters have come in from faraway places like this is Gudiya Chaturvedi from Hamirpur district in Uttar Pradesh, and the one that I have in my hand right now is Divya Tawari from village Daniapur from district Kanpur rural. All of them, the common thread between all these letters is the fact that Vigyan-Prasar and All India Radio have come together to do a very good job, and all of them are benefiting from it.
And look at this. This is a letter from a Bhakti Shakti Radio Shrota Sangh. That means it is a community of listeners which they have formed, and they are listening collectively these programs.
A few more letters. This is Zainab Fatima from Shahjapur, Madhya Pradesh.
Manoj, there is one letter which this is again from this our listener group. Actually, they have written one poem also. If you don't mind, I can read it. Though it is in Hindi, but I think I can. You keep on giving the gist.
Let's
of
look
that.
at the gist.
This is say the चमकीले पीले रंगों से अब डूब रही होगी धरती. खेतों खेतों फूली होगी सरसों हंसती होगी धरती. So he is talking about
Colors of nature.
nature, especially when the mustard is flowering, you see the entire earth become yellow. पंचमी आज ढलते जाड़ों की इस दोपहरी में जंगल में नहा ओढ़नी पीली सुखा रही होगी धरती. So he is talking about when the mustard is maturing and the whole earth become yellow. So this poem is about that beauty of how the nature looked like at that time.
Moving on from letters to the topic that we were discussing, Dr. Gopi Chandran, in terms of conservation practices, what if you were in place of a teacher, how would you approach the topic?
The most important element is the local relevance of what is being communicated. For children residing in urban areas, the kind of energy conservation focus and source of energy could, please mark the word could, be different from children in areas, I will not say rural, areas where these kinds of energy sources are not available. Therefore, the name of the game is local appropriateness. And number two, the kind of tools and techniques they could use for either improving an energy practice or reducing energy loss become very important, and it is possible to adopt such practices even at the household level. Now, the most important message, if I were to speak with children, is to tell them that even you as an individual can really contribute to the larger picture of conservation with a very clear quantitative and a qualitative correlate. It is important to give this message because we should not suffer the problem of that Birbal's story of people putting milk in a kind of a cauldron. Every other person said, look, the other person will put milk and I'll put water. We should not face that problem. And that problem arises out of a kind of a feeling that it's such a big issue. How can I contribute to it? Local relevance and highlighting the importance of the role the individual can play becomes extremely important.
I think there is some role of community also. I'll give you a first-hand information which I had in Shillong. There is a sacred forest, Devwan, which is in Maflong. It is a self-imposed code on the each community member. Even they will not pluck even a leaf from that forest. So there is no enforcement agency. It's only the village and the local people. They are maintaining that. There are two kinds of forest there. One is the protected forest and other is the sacred grove. And even in the protected forest, the headman of the village is deciding like the people who are newly married. They are coming to them. They are asking that they need this much tree to build a house because they are newly married. He is having, the applications from these and how many trees to be cut. That is decided by that headman, and only those people who are some preferences given on some consideration. So it's not everybody is getting. They have to wait till that time, or they have to postpone their marriage. So this kind of culture which we had, and these people are still maintaining that. There is no external enforcement agency for them. Everything is, we have to replicate such model, and we need to know the insight, like what is that mechanism which is working. Why not we can apply in other situation.
Tyagi referred to an excellent example of self-regulation in communities. I will take just only 1 minute doing my service to the field of science communication. And that is, if any message has to be accepted by, let's use the word listener or a learner, they look for credibility at two fronts. Is the person who's communicating credible enough to talk about this? And number two, is whatever being communicated to us feasible insofar as action is concerned? Therefore, credibility of the communicator and feasibility of the solution or an alternative are the two most important keys to this process of mutual empowerment. The person who communicates and the person who's communicated with. I learned this from the Center for Environment Education, which was given this task. And they came out with this brilliant idea. What habit do I have to kick? Please help me pick right.
Yeah. We've been talking about young people for a while. Dr. Ghosh, you are with Terry. I wanted to touch upon the topic of innovation for coming out with out-of-the-box solutions. Just to give an example, in a neighboring country, I'd gone on an official visit, and in rural areas, flanking the highways were pillars which had both solar panels and wind panels, which I've not seen anywhere else.
In India, we have this example, I think it started in Gujarat, that we have a problem about the irrigation canals, that there is a lot of evapotranspiration. Also, Gujarat had embarked on a very ambitious program of deploying solar panels. So the solution was to deploy solar panels above the irrigation channels. So with the result that the shade that provided by the solar panels, they reduced the evapotranspiration, and secondly that the space above was otherwise being wasted. So it was used for the solar panels, because otherwise solar panels will require allocation of land. So this was again a solution which took into account the local circumstances. So there are many such examples of innovation, whether of technology, whether of deployment, whether of policy, in developing countries as well as in developed countries. I have seen for myself in a rural area in India that you see the bullocks which are used for ploughing and so on, that they are idle for a large part of the year. So one local entrepreneur, he had devised a generator which was generating electricity by making the bullocks go round and round in some kind of a horizontal spoked wheel. And then this generator was used to charge lead acid storage batteries. And these lead acid storage batteries were being hired out to the local villagers for lighting their homes, fans, and for the all-important color television set. So this is an example of local grassroots innovation which involves both development of technology as well as a innovative business model to make use of this technology.
This was an example using cycle by building a dynamo in that and then charging the mobile phones, because in rural area, Bihar and UP, there is no light for many days, but your mobile cannot work for more than 2 or 3 days. You need to charge it. So there's a group of people, young people, they came out with solution. They made a dynamo with bicycle fixed up, and then in series they are putting a lot of mobiles, phone which they are charging. doing, and one is paddling the bicycle and doing that. So these are there, but I just want to ask from doctors, sir, what could be the best energy option for India in future if we look at the current scenario? You told about the basket of energy in India, but what could be the future option so that we are at one end fulfilling the need of our own energy requirement, and also we are progressing towards the clean energy?
Well, I would not point to a single magic bullet for our energy solutions, but there are three very promising candidates. I think all of the three have a role. One is, of course, solar. We are a hugely solar endowed country, and solar can be deployed on rooftops, so it doesn't need additional land. But then we also have some 12 to 15% of land which is not being put to significant productive purposes as of now. And so that land can also be utilized for solar energy. And that land is more than enough to meet our energy requirements for a very long time in the future. The second is the biomass that we generate, the cellulosic biomass that we generate, mainly the rice straw, wheat straw, and so on, which otherwise goes waste and which is fed to cattle. But then the point is that the amount that is involved is about 500 million tons of coal equivalent a year, which is almost equivalent to our entire coal production. So I think we have to find ways, and there are technologies for utilizing this resource. They can be used for power generation. They can also, through second generation biofuels technologies, be converted into ethanol, which can then be used for internal combustion engines, and then they will represent a clean fuel. So that's the second resource which would otherwise go waste and which is available in humongous quantity. The third is that India has the world's largest reserves of thorium. We have developed, one of the two countries which have developed the thorium program. The other is Russia, the thorium cycle. And so we have a reactor which is about to be commissioned, a commercial scale reactor, which in a 3-stage cycle will utilize this thorium. There are some other thorium technologies which are under development. Now, the thorium development has the potential to fully solve our baseload requirements of power for almost all time to come, because our reserves of thorium are so large. And also thorium technologies are the new thorium technologies being developed, which involve direct conversion of thorium into, it converts it first into U-233, and then the U-233 is converted in the same reactor into energy. So this direct conversion and fission of thorium is a technology which is not susceptible to proliferation. So this will also address the question of scaling up nuclear power without the attendant risks of proliferation. So these are the three technologies I would say that in the long term, which these rely on our own resources, and they're the best guarantee of both our energy security as well as addressing environmental concerns.
Well, unfortunately, the clock says we're running out of time, and I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Pradipta Ghosh, Distinguished Fellow and Director TERI, Dr. R. Gopichandran, Director Vigyan-Prasar, and Dr. B.K. Tyagi, Senior Scientist and Coordinator at Vigyan-Prasar, for sparing time to come to the studios of All India Radio for this fruitful discussion. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Life must go on. You are listening to the 16th episode of this science serial produced by All India Radio in collaboration with Vigyan-Prasar, titled Interactive Program, based on listeners' letters. Participants, experts were Dr. Pradipta Ghosh, Distinguished Fellow, TERI, and former Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India; Dr. R. Gopichandran, Director, Vigyan-Prasar; Dr. Birendra Tyagi, Scientist and Coordinator, Science Serial. Mr. Manoj Mayankar was moderating the program. You can send your letters by simple post. Our address is Science Serial, Life Must Go On, All India Radio, room number 615, New Broadcasting House, Sansad Marg, New Delhi, 110001. You can also write on our email ID, radio@vigyanprasar.gov.in. Please do write or mail us your full name, age and profession. If associated with Science Club, do let us know the membership of your club. If you have any query or question, don't hesitate to write to us. We will be back again with the next episode of this science serial. Life must go on, same day, same time next week. Till then, goodbye.